Hello everyone, back to today's first video, doing JMA Friday for today's first video. As always on a Friday, we're going to have a detailed look at the weather for the next month. So this takes us just about into the start of August. So we go through to the final month of the summer of 2018 with the subject, of course, been a very dry and hot summer so far. We'll see whether there's any signs of a change to something cooler and more unsettled in the month ahead, but essentially we have had so far a really hot and dry summer, so we'll see whether that's got much longer to go. Coming up later on today, this afternoon, we'll have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days in detail. So we've got a patron and a donor for Gazovids to give a shout out to as well this afternoon. So that'll be all coming up for you later on here at the website, and of course it'll be your detailed week to 10 day look at. But we're going to start off with JMA Friday, so we're going to have a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts from the JMA model first of all, looking at the pole view down to start off with. So this is the North Pole of the Northern Hemisphere just here. The middle latitudes of the Northern Hemisphere are around there. Red, yellow, orange, the brighter colours extrapolate to above average heights, which is high pressure, and the blue, the darker colours, extrapolate to below average heights, which is low pressure. So these are broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us from today, the 6th, through to the 13th of July. We find that we've got a big area of above average height centering over the top of the UK in the week ahead, with below average heights out to the north and to the northwest too. The flow and the jet, therefore, is doing something rather like that. So we're still, for the weekend, on the hot side of the jet stream. We're under that ridge, or the warm side of the jet stream. We're under that ridge of high pressure, which will give us plenty of dry, fine and hot weather. Now, we are going to see a little bit of a cool down taking place early next week, but before then, over the weekend into the start of next week, we really are in some very hot temperatures indeed, and we'll cover that in today's second video update. This is how things are looking in week 2. This is taking us from the 13th through to the 20th of July. And we still have above average heights extending through the Atlantic into the UK as well. But below average heights are still up to the north. That's where the jet stream is. So it's still on the warm side of the jet. The only difference is that pressure is weakening a bit down to the south. We haven't got low pressure to the south, but we have got a bit of a weaker pressure setup, and so that could well be indicative of thundery weather pushing up into the south there through the middle part of July. Overall, still very warm, still a reasonable amount of dry weather. I would have thought the main flow is still coming from kind of like an east or a southeasterly direction, so plenty of warm and pretty dry conditions. Just could be an increasing threat of thunderstorms maybe down in the south. And then we go through to weeks 3 and 4, and this is a little bit of a puzzle. This is taking us from the 20th of July through to the 3rd of August, and we see signs of a change then. Although it's not a dramatic change. So what we can say is that we still have the below average heights up to the north. Otherwise, there's not much else to go on. Now, remember, this is a 2-weekly anomaly, so it is probably transitional. But I think because we see the signal for the above-average heights going away, we haven't got any yellow there. Obviously, there is some sort of change taking place there towards the end of July and early August. What may be happening there is that the 3rd week of July possibly still has that anticyclonic signal, but then the 4th week, which is kind of like going into the start of August, maybe that one is turning a bit more unsettled. Also signs of a jet stream starting to come a bit further southwards as well, I think. So it's not a dramatic switch to something a lot cooler and wetter, but it does look as though there's a little bit of a change beginning to take place there as we go through into weeks 3 and 4. Always quite difficult to decipher those weeks 3 and 4 anomaly charts because they are, as I say, over a 2-weekly period, and they can be transitional. But I do think there is a little bit of a sign, a little bit of a hint of a change as we go through towards the end of July and early August. Let's see if we can find out a little bit more detail by having a look the tropical mid-latitude view in terms of temperature and precipitation anomalies. So this is how week 1 is looking with 500 millibar height anomaly. Remember, British Isles in the top right-hand corner of the chart as you look at it. And essentially in week 1, the 6th through to the 13th of July, we've just got this big area of above average heights part right over top of the country. So you'd expect this to be a very warm week. Indeed, that's what the model is showing. A hot week coming up with temperature anomalies way above average, between 2 and 3 degrees above average, which is hot for July. That's going to be taking temperatures into the upper 20s or the low 30s Celsius. As far as precipitation is concerned, with high pressure over top of the country, you'll expect a dry week as well, and that's what the model shows. So very warm to hot and dry in the week ahead. Then we go through to week 2. This is the 13th to the 20th of July with the above average height still very close to us, but maybe a little bit sort of towards the north. The flow is still coming in from an east or southeasterly type direction, and we may be starting to bring up before to a bit of a risk of thunderstorms maybe from the south. Temperature anomalies are still very warm in this week, not quite as warm as in week 1, but even so still well above average, between 1 and 2 degrees above average, so still quite hot with the temperature anomaly there going into the middle part of July. But we do see signs of that change in terms of precipitation. So northern areas, Scotland, are still coming out drier than average, but for England, Wales and Ireland, we're actually going a little bit wetter than average in this week. It's not a big deviation, but it is going a little bit wetter than average, and this tells us that possibly, because the rain is more focused to the south, it is possibly bringing up or hinting at thunderstorms coming up from the south there through the middle part of July. So a bit of a thundery breakdown maybe going on in the middle part of the month. And then we go through to this very odd looking chart for weeks 3 and 4. It takes us from the 20th of July to the 3rd of August, and we lose the area of above average height. So obviously some sort of change is going on, but the heights are only reverting to average. So it's a transitional period, it's a 2-week period. Clearly something is going on there, but quite what from a pressure perspective is fairly difficult to say, other than pressure is beginning to weaken. Precipitation anomalies are very gradually going a little bit more unsettled, I think, close to the UK. Now, Scotland and Northern Ireland are still coming out a little bit on the drier side. England and Wales still coming out a little bit on the wetter side. Most of Europe, though, is going a bit wetter than average. So pressure is clearly weakening here, and we are clearly starting to turn more unsettled. Even if it's not a dramatic change, clearly something is going on as we go through to this end of July, start of August period. The temperature anomaly is still warmer than average, but it's lowering. It's going back closer to average now, back to those sort of beige sort of colours. So we start off very hot and dry, yes. We continue that through to the middle of July probably, but with an increased risk of thunderstorms. And then the second half of July, particularly I would have thought late July, week 4, late July to start of August, we possibly see signs of a change to something less hot, less warm, and also rather more unsettled perhaps. Let's see whether this is confirmed by the CFS V2. So again, these are 500 millibar height anomalies, so broken down into week periods. The first week period will take us from the 6th through to the 12th of July. The coming week has this large area of above average heights centred right over top of the UK and much of Northern Europe. Below average heights are out to the northwest. The flow on the jet is doing something like that. So the jet stream is well to our north. We're under that ridge of high pressure. Perfect agreement between the JMA and the CFS V2. It is going to be a dry and a hot week overall coming up. Then we go through to week 2. This one takes us from the 13th through to the 19th of July, still with that area of above average heights over country, but it is moving a little bit to the west of the country as well, starting to move out into the Atlantic. The flow of the jet is still generally to our north up there, with possibly bringing in sort of an east-southeasterly flow, and pressure looks a bit weaker around Spain and Biscay, so again that might be starting to threaten some thunderstorms to the south. Very good agreement again up to week 2 between the JMA and the CFS V2. And then go through to week 3, and we see signs of a change coming up then. So we have this area of below average heights close to the country suddenly appearing around the UK and going up to our north as well. Above average heights are in the centre of the Atlantic, and also above average heights being pushed over to the east of Europe. That's quite a big change. What the flow and the jet is doing then is rather like that. So there's a bit of a trough actually appearing within the 500 millibar flow. Been a very long time since we've had one of those. That looks more unsettled and cooler as well there as we go into that week from the 20th to 26th of July. So actually CFS is focusing the change on week 3 rather than week 4. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 27th of July through to the 2nd of August. Again, it all looks rather strange. We've got above average heights beginning to centre towards the east and southeast of Europe. And we've also got above average heights in the middle of the Atlantic. Otherwise, not much else going. There's a little area below average heights to our west-southwest. I think overall, the flow and the jet still doing something rather like that. So it looks like we've still got a bit of a trough within the 500 millibar flow. Focus on this ridge over in the east of Europe. That is a big change on what we've had for a while. The change through the early and middle part of the summer has been to have high pressure around here, and then low pressure has tended to be going through there. So that's meant that for the jet stream, we've been doing something rather like that with the flow and with the jet. So the southeast and the east of Europe has been within the trough, having the cooler and more unsettled conditions. The north and the northwest of Europe has tended to be under the ridge, having drier and hotter conditions. This does suggest a change on that pattern with the ridge over in the east and the southeast of Europe. The trough is probably in the northwest of Europe, so that would leave us doing something like that. It would place the southeast of Europe and western Russia within the ridge, getting the hot air pumping up from the Mediterranean, North Africa, whilst the northwest of Europe is under the trough. But it is a weak signal, but it does, I think both the models here are implying, been a while since we've seen this, but they are implying that the second half of July, and particularly late July, possibly sees a change in the broad pattern that has dominated the weather really since May. Temperature anomalies are looking like this, so the coming week is much, much hotter than average. A very, very warm to hot week coming up, the 6th to the 12th of July. The 13th to the 19th of July, also much, much warmer, much hotter than average for the UK and for much of Central Europe as well. Notice what I was talking about in terms of the broad setup with the cooler conditions, cooler and average temperature anomalies in the, can't see the northeast of Europe, but they are there in the northeast of Europe and going into western Russia, and then down into the southeast of Europe into that position. So that's where the trough is at the moment, whilst the northwest remains under the ridge and has the hotter than average temperature anomalies. We go through to week 3 and we find signs of a change. So it is still warmer than average in the northwest, around the UK and Ireland, from the 20th to 26th of July. Temperature anomalies are warmer than average, but they're lowering, they're beginning to ease down, and the heat looks like it's starting to move over towards the eastern part of Europe. That's a difference to what we've had recently. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 27th of July to the 2nd of August. Still a little bit warmer than average for the UK, but nowhere near as much as it was at the start, and really going close to average. Notice the heat, the warmer than average temperature anomalies now really are appearing in the east and the southeastern part of Europe, and also going over towards western Russia, which is just there. So definitely signs of a bit of a pattern change taking place here with these two models as we go through to late July. And then finally, precipitation. So the 6th through to 12th of July, CFS V2 comes out substantially drier than average. It's going to be another very dry week coming up. Week 2 does look a little bit more unsettled though. Instead of that much drier than average precipitation, normally we go to average precipitation. So obviously it's a more unsettled week there from the 13th to the 19th. Little bit wetter than average to our south as well, implying the change is probably happening from the south in the form of heavy showers or thunderstorms. So a bit of a thundery breakdown indicated by both of these models through the middle of July. Week 3, which is the 20th, 26th of July, precipitation is average to possibly a little bit wetter than average from the far northwest of the country. And then week 4 again comes out with average precipitation. It is a little bit wetter than average for Ireland though. And it's all just indicative that both the CFS and the JMA appear to be hinting at a little bit of a change as we go deeper into July. So obviously we've had this very hot and dry, almost drought-like start to the summer. The first part of the summer has definitely been very much hotter and drier than average. And this is going to continue for a little bit longer. The next week certainly is looking very hot and dry. Then we're implying a bit of a thundery breakdown from the south around the middle part of July. And then this second half of July does look as though both of the models are indicating a little bit of a pattern change. It's not a dramatic switch, but over time it looks like we just gradually erode that ridge away and begin to move it particularly to the east and southeastern part of Europe. So where it has been very cool and quite wet through the early part of the summer, it starts to turn much hotter and drier. And in the northwest, where it has been very hot and dry, it begins to turn, let's not say cool and wet, but it does begin to turn a little bit more unsettled, and it does start to cool down quite a bit as well. So signs of a change with JMA Friday, and obviously these models are highly experimental. They're not to be relied upon. It could all look very different next week. That's what it's showing today. Quite an interesting update, I think. So we'll just have to see how it goes and see what happens over the next few days, whether the shorter range models begin to pick up on this possibility of a pattern change in the second half of July. And talking of short range models, we'll be back later on today having a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days in detail. So come back for that this afternoon. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.